As a kid, I always wanted to be an astronaut. I thought that going to the moon would be a trip of a lifetime. I never knew how much work actually would go into putting the first man on the moon. From Sputnik 1 to Apollo 11, there was so much put into a decade, and the advancements were so extreme. I've read books, I've watched documentaries, the Apollo 13 movie, I even visited the Kennedy Space Center, and I found it so fascinating. It all started during the Cold War, when America and Russia were in a gridlock position, and they wouldn't dare launch a missile at each other in fear of global disaster. And so they were looking for smaller ways to win, like the arms race, where they would just stock up missiles. They would never launch one, but they would stock them up, so that they could feel powerful over the other. The space race was the main one of the Cold War. The ability to have satellites spying on the other country would have been such an advantage, and so both countries were attempting to launch a satellite. In 1957, however, Russia took the lead and launched Sputnik 1, a small 23-inch satellite that sent crude pictures back to Russia and America into a frenzy. President Kennedy delivered a speech not long after Sputnik 1 was launched, saying that we were going to go to the moon, something that Russia hadn't considered. We were just looking at, and us actually, we were just looking at launching satellites into orbit, but Kennedy said he wanted to go all the way. And so there the race began. We started with Explorer rockets, or Saturn 1 rockets, about 13 of them. And about 6 months after Sputnik 1 was launched, Explorer 1 was launched, and we were able to also take crude pictures of Earth from outside of its atmosphere. This was such an advancement, and all eyes were on this race at this point. 13 Explorer rockets launched after Explorer 1, including a few manned and several animals on them as well. After Explorer 1 and the rest of the Explorer missions started, then the Apollo missions. The Apollo missions were different in that they had a large capsule ship, multiple piece, and the attempt was to get man out of Earth's orbit and into the gravitational field of the moon. Apollo 1, however, ended in tragedy when a flash fire took over the capsule and killed all 3 astronauts, stunning America and NASA. Many safety precautions had been set aside in hopes that it would save time. However, that they were re-entered after this fire. NASA took a step back, even in the decade that they had, or the very short time that they had to take a step back and realize what they were doing. 7 missions followed Apollo 1. 5 of them manned. 3 of them orbited the moon. This was such an advancement and so grand in the plan of getting Apollo 11 to the moon. Finally, after around 9 years of preparation, Apollo 11 launched in July of 1969. All eyes were on NASA, and after launch, while there were a few troubles, it was actually a rather smooth flight to the moon. Buzz Aldrin, Neil Armstrong, and Michael Collins were the 3 men upon this ship. Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin would set foot on the moon. With 30 seconds left of fuel, Neil Armstrong landed the Eagle, or the lunar module, on the moon and said these words: "One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind, iconic to today's age, and will never be forgotten. The Explorer missions are the Apollo missions are important to America because it shows how tough we are in the strongest and the hardest of moments, and the most struggling times, and it shows that we are willing to conquer anything when put up to the challenge. Thank you.